Max Holloway and Arnold Allen in our featherweight main event from last weekend. And it goes to Max Holloway, unanimous decision, 49-46 times 2. Dissenting judge had it 48-47. I felt like there was an argument to be made that Max Holloway did bank the first 4 rounds. My go-to scorecard, Sean Sheehan, suggested a round 2 for Arnold Allen. I certainly think there's an argument to be made there. Big round 5 for Arnold Allen on the heels of Firas Zahabi suggesting he needed World War III in round 5. I would submit to you, if Arnold Allen goes World War III in round 4 and 5, maybe we're talking about a different outcome. Instead, Max Holloway maintains his spot near the top of the division and adds a 20th UFC win. Your thoughts on the UFC main event?
It's an extremely difficult thing to have a strategy that involves having to outpoint or outfight Max Holloway at his own game. And I think that's kind of maybe where the failure was a little bit too much, is that, and Arnold Allen kind of has that style that Max Holloway does, but Max Holloway just played it better. And again, when you're talking about experience, and this is why I went the way of Max Holloway, it is so tough to make those right decisions against someone with the kind of experience that Max Holloway has. Dude, Max Holloway is an absolute treasure. The way that he fights, his toughness, there's so many different levels to how he approaches the game. He's like, oh, okay, you want to try to outpoint me? I'll outpoint you. You want to switch stances? I can switch stances. Oh, you want to get nasty and try to knock me out? I'm game for that too, and I'll beat you at that as well. So this was a Max Holloway that I thought who looked great. He looked energized before the fight. He fought like he was energized during the fight. And I think what makes it all the more impressive is that this was an Arnold Allen that fought extremely well, but Holloway was just a little bit better.
So it sounds great that Arnold Allen's stock may go up. I don't necessarily see it that way, and I love this kid. I haven't had a chance to call a lot of his fights, but you know how I feel about these 2-year championship setbacks, and I'm not a fighter, and I can't go into his head, but I felt like as great and as urgent as Firas was at the beginning of round 5, I just feel like, to your point, you can't dick around with Max Holloway. I know how hard he is to put away. He's just a really hard guy against whom to bank rounds.
Yeah.
As far as Arnold Allen moving forward, Kenny, valuable experience accrued, obviously. 25 minutes with Max Holloway. Hard to do much better than that. But if you were to look at him with a critical eye as you spin it forward against the other top 5 at featherweight, what would you say to Arnold Allen in terms of taking his career to the next level?
I would have liked to seen more of an approach like Volkanovski took against Holloway, right? Where you're able to dance in, dance out, land big shots, make Holloway pursue, and then counter him again and get out of the way. I don't think there was enough where he was frustrating Holloway. There was no point where Holloway was really frustrated. He stood in front of Holloway a little bit too much and tried to outpoint him at his own game. And I think that's where he failed a little bit too much. I also would have liked to seen him mix it up in the clinch. Anytime Holloway was getting off, get to that clinch like he did in round 5 a little bit. Slow him down, take him out of his rhythm, then go back in, use your striking game. I didn't see enough weapon variety. I didn't see enough variety with his overall game. I thought that he really just tried to make it a boxing fight. And against Holloway, it's going to be extremely difficult to beat Max Holloway in a boxing fight inside the octagon. So I didn't expect him to try to take him down because Holloway has very underrated takedown defense. Maybe it's not underrated. Maybe it's just damn good. But either way, it would have been tough for him to do that. So, and to your point, I would have liked to seen more aggression early on in the fight. I guess I think he won round 2.
Yeah.
I think he was on his way to winning maybe round 5, and maybe there is an argument for round 5 as well. But him getting dropped at the very end didn't help him. But he certainly took a more aggressive approach in round 5. But I would have liked to seen him be more aggressive in rounds 3 and 4, and then put the pressure on Holloway late in the fight. It was tough. I thought he really should have stepped on the gas earlier in that one.
I got a question from one of our longtime faithful listeners, Bruce Marshall. He's the guy at the live events wearing the merchandise, if you're wondering. By the way, Cody, that hoodie that some fan was wearing in Kansas City with the brand new DraftKings podcast logo and yo fucking later on the back, which is a nod to my best friend Hurricane Montgomery. Did we make those? Or did that dude make it on his own? Either way, it's a brilliant
that's
hoodie.
a bootleg.
Oh, you gotta love it. All right, so here's yeah. So here's the question from Bruce Marshall. And as you marinate on this question, I'm going to throw out some numbers for you on the back end. Max Holloway is the sharpest, smartest fighter in the UFC. How does he come out of a tiny gym and these monster gyms cannot produce the same? Strictly a fighter with natural skills. That's a question for Kenny Florian. And as you marinate on what makes Max great, every time he fights, and you see his performance against Calvin Kattar, obviously is immortalized behind me if you're watching on DraftKings YouTube channel right now. I still can't wrap my head around what he was able to do volume-wise against Calvin Kattar, that over those 25 minutes, he landed 300 more strikes than he did against Arnold Allen on Saturday night in what was a pretty good effort volume-wise. You know, the commentators kept saying every time Arnold Allen landed, Holloway was hitting him with a four-piece combination on the backside. Against Calvin Kattar, he landed 445 significant strikes on 744 attempts. Like, that will never be broken. Don't at me. That will never be broken. 274 significant strikes landed to the head against Calvin Kattar. Last night, efficiently, Holloway lands, or Saturday night, 147 significant strikes on 262 attempts. So far less volume, methodical, measured, at his calculated best. He can beat you in a number of different ways. He can beat you with 700 plus strikes. He can beat you like this. What makes him so special, and how has he been able to do it seemingly with, I shouldn't say no names around him, because there are a lot of talented coaches around him, but he has kept this circle tight and has realized success while doing so.
I think there's a lot of things at play here. We could talk about preparation, number one. Clearly, his coaches are preparing him extremely well. He's also putting in an extreme amount of work. One doesn't just throw that many punches against Calvin Kattar without being in insane shape. And that obviously, it's twofold. I think there's a lot of natural ability there. The way that he's built, he's almost built like a marathoner or a triathlete. But also, you have to be putting in the work in training camp. You can't just go out there and do that and go, I'm going to rely on my natural cardio or my natural lungs to do that. You got to be training your ass off. And clearly, Max Holloway and his team are doing that. I think on a technical level, they're always pushing the envelope as well and looking for ways to get better. But perhaps the most important thing out of all of that, John, I think is the culture in Hawaii. If you have a beef to settle, you settle it, and you settle it with your hands. You go outside and you say, what's up? Those guys have been doing that for a very long time, and they've been doing that since they're little kids. And,
right.
and also you had this guy in BJ Penn who was like this virtual god out of Hawaii. So all these little kids have been looking up to BJ Penn and all these other Hawaiian fighters for a long time. So I think the MMA culture has been there and been there strong for a very long time. And I think those guys have just been training and had that culture around them for a very long time as well. You know, you talk about Helson Gracie moving there to Hawaii way back in the day, like early 90s. So they've been doing jiu-jitsu for a long time. They've been fighting for a long time. Surf culture and how they, fight and protect their waves and their territory. So they have all those things that kind of makes them a very strong warrior culture. Yeah. And, then you add in all those gyms that are there. And I think you get kind of this perfect recipe to create someone like a Max Holloway.